All right. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me well?
Yes.
All right, great, 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 great. Um, my name is Serge. Welcome to the webinar on how to get into college and all about admissions. This will be a very much introductory seminar, or webinar rather. We will begin with a couple of just preliminary points, and then I'll leave a bit of room for questions at the end. Now let me just try to work this thing. I'm using Canva, which is being slightly glitchy. So one sec. All right. I just want to make sure that you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. All right, so whether you're a parent or whether you are an applicant, college admissions can be a daunting process, and it is oftentimes overwhelming to navigate. And there are a lot of components, a lot of questions circulating around the process. The most pertinent question is, what do I need to do? The second, perhaps equally important or as equally hefty, is when do I start? Right. So the first thing to know is that college admissions can be really broken down into steps. Right? Now, before we really dive into this, I want to give you a quick intro. Just my credentials are listed below. My links and contact are also listed below. At the very end, you'll have an opportunity to scan a QR code to schedule ahead. So again, to those that are just joining in, welcome to our seminar. This is a roadmap towards a successful application. And I just want to check with you guys, everyone is seeing this new slide, right? Yes? Okay, perfect. Oops. All right. Now I see somebody raised their hand, but yeah. All right. Whoops. So we will go through the process. I will offer some initial insight. We will wrap up with a Q&A. The goal of all of these slides and all of this information is simply to empower you with a clear, actionable insight that demystify the process. Now, I may not necessarily see your raised hands, so if you can save those for the end, because I'm switching between screens to navigate the presentation. All right, so agenda. We will talk about the changing and shifting admissions landscapes, because understanding the state of admissions and how it has shifted, how it has changed, is crucial to beginning the process. We will break down the application process, looking at the key components and steps involved in applying. Some you probably already heard of, like Common App, early deadlines, and the rest. Some maybe not so much, like the letter of continuing interest, what to do when one is deferred or waitlisted. We will cover what admission committees are looking for and how that has shifted as well. Beyond simply academics and numbers, what makes a good applicant? A person who has a 4.0 and does really well on the SATs or the ACTs does not necessarily warrant admission to selective colleges. Selective colleges are looking for a little bit more than that. So beyond academics, what can we do? We will quickly discuss some essential tips for standing out and how to approach standing out, strategies that showcase your unique strengths, talents, passions. We'll look quickly at some key dates, right? Because staying organized and beginning early is the surest first step towards success. And then we will wrap up with a Q&A. So moving on. College admission matters, and it matters early. Because when we think about colleges, where we want to go, what we want to pursue, we are inadvertently thinking about our career, our future, our professional, personal growth, our networking, right? So admissions isn't simply about getting into college. Admissions is about understanding how the story of you as an applicant is building from first step to the next, to the next, to the next, right? We oftentimes go into college wanting to major in something, and then we switch that interest midway through, and that's perfectly fine. But when we apply, we need to have a sense of orientation. What is it that excites us more when it comes to scholastic subjects? Is it biology, chemistry? Is it physics? Is it business? Is it something broad like medicine? Or is it something very specific like continental philosophy? Indeed, broad as well. Starting early matters. And you might be wondering, what does that mean, starting early? Well, some start when they're freshmen, some start when they're sophomores, some start much later, right? But the earlier you begin engaging with the process, the better prepared you will be to tackle it, to advance, the better able you will know how to plan things and sequence things, when to ask for a letter of recommendation, which teacher to ask, when to reach out for summer internships, what competitions might you want to participate in to expand your application. So starting early matters, and the notion of early is quite different for each individual applicant. Again, some start as early as freshmen or even before. Some start a little bit later. The important thing is that you engage, right? Now, if I were to give you a strategic set of guidelines to begin with, I would say you probably should have an idea of what you want to do when you're a freshman in high school. Maybe not to do, but what subjects are you drawn to? Maybe you may not necessarily know which schools you will be applying to, but you probably should have at least 2 or 3 that you are super excited about. Developing these initial points will help you in the long run. And it will help you succeed in the long run. Now, the college admission process, colloquially, is comprised of the following components: academic records, transcripts, GPA, AP classes, difficult classes, good grades that show engagement, so numerical data, and showcases of difficult classes and curricula, standardized tests, SAT, ACT, AP exams, still dealing with numerical data. Then we get to personal statements, essays, supplemental essays, and other short written questions. This is something that you should be prepared for. Your common application will have a main essay, and then every single school that you will add to the list will have their own set of supplemental essays, some as many as 5 or 6. Some will have an optional short essay prompt. What you should be ready for is that you will have to write a lot for your application, because it is in the writing that your story really comes to the fore. It is through the writing that your numerical data becomes something more palpable and something more tangible than just numbers. Your essays will present you as a person rather than a set of numerical achievements. Then there are, of course, recommendations from teachers, mentors, and you should start thinking about that also relatively early. Which teachers do you have a good relationship with? Which teachers do you like? Who likes you back? You need to start developing a rapport with your academic advisors and your teachers or professors, because they will be responsible for advertising you, marketing you, recommending you to the universities. If you really like English and you love writing and your English teacher always praises your work, don't drop that dialogue when the class ends. Keep it going. Check in periodically. Ask for reading lists. Engage with the people that like you and are willing to help you advance further. Develop dialogues with your teachers, mentors, and advisors. The flow is relatively straightforward. You compile, you submit, you are holistically reviewed, and then you get your decision, whether you apply early or regular. It is crucial to know the following fact. Your application is more than numbers. It tells a story. And it is this story that makes the difference between a unique standout application and the gray matter from which it emerges. Admission officers have never met you. Your application is how they will. And what they seek are authentic stories that reveal truly who you are beyond your grades. It's good to have good grades. It's good to do well. It helps tremendously, but it's not the only thing. The holistic review approach looks at you as a composite of all the things you've done, all of your experiences, engagements, volunteering hours, aspirations, interests, passions. Passions is what we will talk about in a few. But it is crucial to keep this in mind. It is crucial to show one as a multifaceted applicant rather than somebody who just does well in class or does well in the tests, right? Remember, your application is how you convey your character, your ethos, your set of values, your resilience, your aspirations, and on top of that, all of the other good things like GPA, SAT, APs, extracurriculars, right? There are in your application academic credentials. This is schoolwork, simply speaking. Have you taken only regular classes, or have you taken a bunch of advanced classes, AP classes, classes outside of your school and maybe at a local college, or maybe classes during a summer program at Brown or Cornell? Right? The distribution matters. Because somebody who does slightly less well overall, but takes all AP classes is a more valued candidate than somebody who does really well, but takes only basic classes. So your academic credentials call for diversification. They call for difficulty, right? It doesn't mean that you should overload yourself, but you should keep the classes and the differences in mind. If you're interested in computer science, it doesn't mean that you should not take any creative classes. In fact, you should, so that you're not confining yourself to a box. What makes a good application is how the student, the applicant, tells a story in which that applicant shows engagement with the world, not just with a isolated subject. Standardized tests, self-explanatory. Scores factor in, but they don't make it. Essays is where you can really shine, because crafting a compelling narrative, showing genuine passion and self-reflection will make or break the application. Right. Recommendations, of course, we mentioned this already. Now, the holistic review approach looks at you beyond the numbers. It looks at your story, your involvement. It looks for initiative. The holistic review looks for passion. But what does that mean? How do we understand that? Passion. Right? So this is just a bit of statistic. 70% of admitted students cite the holistic review process as a key factor in recognizing their strength. Because as much as the admissions officers are evaluating you as a composite, you have to also look at yourself, right, as a composite. So approaching everything that you do with a lens of curiosity, right, with a lens towards a holistic presentation. If I'm interested in computer science, again, am I only interested in computer science, or do I see a world a little bit differently through the lens that that subject gives me? If I am a chemistry buff, does that mean that I only want to do well in chemistry, or does that mean that chemistry allows me to think about other aspects of my life through a particular frame of mind, through a particular lens of knowledge? Right. So it is utterly important to early on start thinking about what excites you. What are you passionate about? You can like a subject, but liking a subject very, very much doesn't make it something more than just a subject of interest. What colleges are looking for is that you use your values and what you're passionate about to do something. And in order for one to convey that in the essays, you need to start thinking about this a little bit early on. Asking yourself, what do I like to do if I'm not forced to do it, if I'm not asked to do it? Do I like to learn, let's say, something new about biology outside of class or during summers? And why? Do I like to learn something about chirality in organic chemistry? Yes, but why? Well, maybe it is because I care deeply about clean water access. And I think learning more about chemistry will help me somehow orient towards solving a bigger problem. Your passions translate all across the facets of your life. They are not limited to the school or an educational setting. Applications value passion, or rather counselors, admissions officers, they value passion and leadership. These 2 points, passion and leadership, they will make a standout applicant. True, genuine passion for a subject or a cause that engages one's personal values, and true sense of wanting to lead, wanting to change, wanting to take initiative to make something better of our environment. This is an opportunity for you to showcase what drives you, to explain how your passion, abstract interest, leads to specific action, how a blossoming interest in the subject develops into something bigger, leads to concrete examples of experience. In leadership, you can demonstrate your initiative and drive through clubs, activities, community outreach, research projects, right? It matters because passion fuels persistence and innovation. It matters because passion shows that an applicant will expand their worldview in college, especially a selective one. This type of independence and stamina and determination and perseverance is what colleges value the most. Right? Now, your applications will be evaluated, right, through this holistic approach by a set of people that don't know you. So the first thing to keep in mind is that every applicant is addressing an audience on the other side. You have to keep the fact that there are people listening to your story on the other side, right? As you're thinking about colleges, applications. Now, on a more specific note, you should do the research required for your applications. Let's say you want to go to college XYZ, but you don't quite know why. Go on their website. Look up their traditions, unique experiences, their dorms, their classes, their faculty, their research centers. You have to be able to tell yourself why you're interested in a specific school, because chances are on your supplemental essays you will get a question. Why us? Why do you fit? Why did you choose this particular major at our school? And you have to be able on the spot to deliver that pitch to yourself. Do your research. Start looking up colleges and schools. Start making a list of potentials, but also go a little bit deeper. Know your facts about the schools that you're applying to. Princeton, for example, everybody who goes to Princeton graduates with a thesis. Know what a thesis is. Know that Princeton is unique in that way. Know that UChicago, for example, has a set of very idiosyncratic and funky social traditions. Know what they are if you're interested in UChicago. You may have heard UChicago has a notoriously, I don't even know what to call it, a notoriously funky supplemental essay in which you're really just given room to play along. It values creativity. That tells us something about the school spirit and what type of thinkers they attract, right? So do the research necessary for you to understand why you want to go to school X, Y, or Z. As you're doing your research, look at the clubs that the school offers. Are you thinking of joining them? Are you thinking of continuing the clubs that you started at school or that you participated in at school? Your extracurricular work matters tremendously. Now, there is a set of misconceptions when it comes to college applications, right? One of those is high grades and tests guarantee admission. We already debunked that myth. Every part of your profile matters. You don't need to show perfection in every area. It does not hurt, but that's not required. We can show growth, resilience, authenticity, and we can show how we overcame challenges. And overcoming those challenges tells the admissions officer a lot more than simply perfection in every area. In fact, on the Common App, there is a prompt that asks you to consider one of your challenging experiences, what you learned, how you grew, and what person you became at the end of it. Now, this gives the admissions officers a more holistic view of who you are, right? That you are balancing academic rigor with initiatives, with extracurricular engagement, with a drive towards leadership. You are also researching the schools in order to be able to clearly state how and why you fit there. Now, admissions officers often say that they look for a narrative that ties your academic achievements to your future aspirations and to your personal individual values. Now, what you should consider early on is that the requirement is for you to focus on your unique strengths rather than trying to meet some kind of perfect standard. Remember that the purpose is for your application to stand out, right? And if we want to stand out, we don't rely on standards. We use them, right? 60% of applicants report that extracurricular achievements significantly influenced the admissions decisions. This is just a statistical, relatively new trend. Now, speaking of trends, in the past, scores, GPA, and just good old solid academic backing was almost enough. In the recent 5 or so years, the focus has shifted radically to the value of narrative and exposition of character in each applicant. Again, that doesn't mean that the scores don't matter, but what is interesting is that over the course of the past 5 years, more and more schools made standardized tests an optional component. But prior to 2019, I want to say it was required by about 95% of schools. The shift is from simply looking at data and noting remarkable or notable rather achievements to really listening to the story that each applicant brings to the admissions table. Right. More and more schools are adapting this approach. In fact, statistically, more schools are asking applicants to do more writing. Now, starting your freshman year, joining clubs, starting to take foundational classes to be able to take higher ones, starting to develop relationships with your teachers, looking for summer opportunities, whether they are volunteer, competition, academic programs, Olympiads or whatnot, internships. All of those things are great. Right? In the long run, you will end up with a set of schools that you want to go to and a set of schools that maybe are somewhat more secondary. You have to have at least 3 that you're super excited about. Those could be used for early decision consideration. A quick note, early decision is a binding contract. Early action is not a binding contract. Early decision sometimes yields a deferral, which isn't a rejection, but a reconsideration of the applicant in the regular pool. If you're really excited about the school and you know why, and you've done everything in your power to show that school that you're excited about them, you should consider applying early. Early decisions are usually due around November, beginning or mid. Regular decisions between December 15th or so to January 15th. Right? There are numerous websites where you can look up these timelines. But know this, by middle of your junior year, you should have an idea of where you want to apply, and you should also have an idea of what would be your secondary set of choices. You need to create a safety net for yourself. Aim high, but practically. Aim high, but protect yourself. Now, crucially, I emphasized several times that timing and standing out and crafting a memorable application all depends on knowing the steps towards it. Think about it this way. You need to ask for an application, for a recommendation. It will take time for your teacher to write one. Have a set of teachers that you are considering asking it towards the end of your junior year. Ideally, you wouldn't ask people that have only known you for less than a semester. Keep track of all of your scores and all of your dates. Have a table. Make a spreadsheet. Schools I really dig, deadlines, number of supplemental essays, portfolio option, yes, no. Recommendation letters. Start making this list early on. It will change, but engagement will make a better list in the end. It will prepare you better. Start thinking early about your summers, how you want to spend them. You do not want to show that you've done nothing during summers. You want to show engagement. All of your experiences will be an opportunity for you to tailor your story in the application to highlight how you are a genuine, curious, interested, authentic individual that uses a certain value system to take initiative in the world, uses one's own leadership potential to make something of idle time or to better their immediate environments. Lastly, whenever you're thinking about essays and approaching your story, you've probably heard this advice before at school, but show, don't tell. Don't get to the end result, to the end experience. Tell how you got there. Show how you got there. Because numbers will tell their own story. But your accomplishments, the ones that you really value because they had a personal impact on you, those, they will speak for themselves. And when those accomplishments speak for themselves, that's when they tell an impactful story that supplements every other component of your application. All right. So this is kind of the end of some of the things that I wanted to share with you. Let me just check my notes really quickly. You can copy this code, scan the code to get in touch with me. You can also get in touch with me through LinkedIn or Leland's platform. The link to my profile, I put it at the beginning, but I guess this is also the same link, this QR code, in fact. One thing that I want to say before opening up for questions and discussion is that each of you who are present here today, each of you has a unique journey determined by a unique set of experiences, unique interests, and modes of engagement. You have your own way of inspiring others. Now, as much as our story is unique, oftentimes we don't look at it that way. So my advice to you is embrace your story. Embrace every single minute of a challenge that you've lived through, of a difficulty that you've overcome, of a setback that threw you off for a spin. Evaluate how you grew in the process. And in embracing your story, you will also be able to tell it in the best way in your application. And now with this, I want to open up the floor for any questions or comments or anything that you are you want to ask me. Anyone? Yes.
Hello. All right. So I have a quick question for you. So I'm currently in the process of I'm actually transferring from one university to another to like my dream school,
Mhm.
and this kind of in regards to my essays. So obviously the school has I'm applying to University of Michigan, and the school has their why us essay, right?
Mhm.
Should I focus more on like here's what I want to get out of my career and here's how the school fits into that, or should I focus more on here's the parts of the school culture I love and here's why I think I'd be a good part of that? I guess what should I focus on more?
Um, Definitely the culture of the school. So it's a really good question. What was the name? Jacob? Was it your name?
Yep.
Um, it's a really good question. And oftentimes we can't really separate the two, because we do want to go to a certain school because it has certain implications for our careers and future. So we mustn't simply jettison that. But that shouldn't be the focus. It shouldn't be the center. It shouldn't be the gravitational pull. It should be one of the effects of attending a particular institution with particular opportunities: outreach, local, community, research centers, faculty. The culture of the school is what they want you to use to show your fit. Now, being there, right, would allow you to pursue a career path. So a career path is inseparable, certainly, but it isn't the center. It is a consequence. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Because like, I'm applying to the Ross School of Business, and so it's a lot of very ambitious people. So I'm trying to figure out how exactly I can stand out amongst that crowd.
Sure. This is a great question. You can get in touch with me and we can discuss it a little bit further, so that I give room to others as well.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
I was just wondering when one should start like preparing for, or when should one start the whole getting scholarships process as juniors, especially more merit-based ones? Because personally, I'm not sure if I qualify for any of the really big need-based ones like Questbridge or something. And if so, do you know of any good scholarship sites, and should we talk to our college counselors about getting scholarships before we actually like start the process on our own? Or
The best way, I mean, especially as a junior, well, hold on, let me just think about it. As a junior, have you taken PSATs?
I have, yes.
All right, so when you take PSATs, your scores, information, name and numbers, they're sent to a bunch of organizations. Those organizations, they look for merit and then they contact the people. So taking PSATs is one way that kind of to get one's name out without necessarily having to look for them, or rather to look for opportunities. In terms of being a junior and looking for scholarships that aren't necessarily merit-based, you can look at competitions that allow for that have scholarships, like John Locke competition. There are many other opportunities, but my kind of go-to, perhaps somewhat flimsy advice would be just start researching. Sit down and spend a solid hour figuring out which opportunities you can apply for. Do you like math or do you like humanities more? You like, let's say, humanities more. Start looking for opportunities to show that, right? So competitions are a great way to kind of increase one's financial backing. But again, also feel free to reach out with kind of further questions, so that we can give a little room to others as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, of course. Yes. Next one. If I mispronounce, I apologize. Imanibo.
Yeah, hi. I'm also planning on transferring, and I was stumped when I saw an essay topic. I wanted to know how like I should answer it. The question was, what are the alternatives to transferring if you're not accepted?
Can you repeat your question again? What is important?
What are your alternatives if you are not accepted for the transfer?
So you're filling out a transfer application, and your question are, what are the alternatives if you are not accepted for the transfer, right?
Yeah. I don't know how to
My go-to response for that would be to sort of evaluate one's academic standing, and if there is no acceptance, that means that one needs to showcase a little bit more of something. So to determine what that is, oftentimes students that have tried to transfer and weren't, and their transfers weren't successful, they simply stayed where they were, or they took a little bit of time off, either a semester or a year, to amp up one's credentials outside of the institution which they want to leave. So those would be my kind of two immediate go-to points of advice for you. Does that help?
Yeah, but like, would I write those in the essay? Because that's an essay prompt.
Say it again.
Would I write those in the essay? That's an essay prompt.
So you write, yeah, every application will have a prompt, and you need to answer, you need to just basically break the prompt apart, really meticulously figure out what you're being asked, and then write an appropriate response for it.
Okay.
And you can, again, also you can get in touch with me with any more questions.
All right. Thank you.
Of course. Anyone else? No? Going once? Going twice? And going thrice. All right. It has been a pleasure guiding you through this process. Feel free to get in touch with any of your questions, those who asked and those who didn't. And I can help you with the tasks and goals rather that you set for yourself. If anything about the presentation today caught your attention, let me know if you want me to expand on a